Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing, one of the fastest growing real estate investing podcasts in the world. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors? Find out what got them to where they are now. Get insight into their daily habits and take these insights to inspire your own growth. Each episode, Jonathan Greene shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor and the founder of Streamline, a data-driven, investor-friendly, independent real estate brokerage located in Madison, New Jersey. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, this is the free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Welcome back to another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. Today we have a return guest, Hold It, with PM Jen, aka Jennifer Ruelens. Today we're talking how to find, hire, and fire property managers. This has been her mission for the last couple months, to let people know that there's a process, how to do it, what to look for, and really what to pay attention to. You're going to hear all about it, and if you need to hire a property manager, fire one, or find one, this is the show for you. Let's go. This is episode 349 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my return guest, Jennifer Ruelens. And I told her last time, I think that she changed her name to Hold It with PM Jen. I think that's true. She's been on the show before. Her last episode was in January of this year, episode 312, a playbook for buying and holding rental properties. She's back with another lens. She is the founder and owner of One Focus Property Management in Central Pennsylvania. She's back today because we're going to go over the Buy and Hold Investor's Guide to finding, hiring, and my favorite, firing a property manager. Jen, welcome to the show.
Well, I can't wait to fire property managers with you, Jonathan. This is a good day. Yeah, for sure. And thank you for having me back.
My
and
pleasure.
The name change isn't legal yet, so you can just call me Jen.
Yeah.
I think for now.
That's like Prince, though. I mean, you're just kind of like doing your thing. Yeah, the firing thing is, the way that I look at firing and why it's important to me is, one, I think people are babies about firing and they hold on way too long. But the way that I think about firing, I'm only firing people who deserve to be fired. It's not, that's what almost makes it in like a weird way fun, because I feel like usually they're getting over on you, and then, you do the firing and they're like, oh, wait, now I'll do everything right. So we'll get to that. But let's start with finding. I know you manage more than 600 units. You have so many different clients. But when you were getting started, and for someone who's getting started now, maybe they have 1, 2, 3 properties that they've been self-managing, and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Where do they start for finding a property manager?
Right. I think the thing I want people to know about is you can search online, you can talk to your friends, and those are all really great ways. I'm not going to get into where you find them because AI will help you find them, but what are you going to ask first, right? Like, what's the first level of, I have a list of 10, I need to get it to 1. And this is what nobody's talking about. I want you to ask 2 questions of each of these. One, you're going to research on your own. One, you have to ask for. So you're going to research on your own their license. So you're going to figure out in your state, what's the license requirement for a property manager? Now, in Maryland, there is none. No state license required. Now, here in Pennsylvania...
That sounds safe. I'm glad I have no properties there. Yeah.
Right. And that's not something that's talked about very openly. So just anybody can, go from doing nothing to being a property manager there. Pennsylvania, I think it's a lot like you have in New York, where it's the same license for real estate sales professionals as property managers. So if there's a state license, there's a state license database. You're just going to look it up and you can verify a license. So if I'm looking to maybe hire ABC Property Management, I'm going to look up that company because that company has a license. Disciplinary action against the company. Is it in good standing? Is the office licensed? And then I can see all the people who are licensed underneath. So is the person, is Joan at ABC Management Company actually licensed to be doing this work? Yeah. Or is there just one licensed person? And the thing that most investors don't understand is who's working for you at a real estate brokerage. And I'll share with you, it is always the broker. So you're the broker at your office, Jonathan. I'm the broker at my office. And we both amongst our team and the licensees who work with us serve a lot of clients. But at the way the laws work, at least in our states, all that work is done under our license.
Yep.
So it is our responsibility to supervise the property managers, sales agents, leasing agents that hold licenses. Now, what my point here is, who is the broker of that office? What is their disciplinary record? And are they local? I know that a lot of companies use brokerages from other companies. So if I'm maybe a licensed salesperson, or maybe I'm not anything, and I want to own a property management company.
Yeah.
By the way, people want to own property management companies because they think that they're ATMs. They see reoccurring revenue.
That seems insane to me, by the way. It's one of the hardest jobs ever.
It is, but my email box, I get 15 to 20 private equity requests for acquisition a day. And now they're starting to get my cell phone number. They see that reoccurring revenue, the control of spend, as very lucrative, which that's an argument against institutional owners and roll-ups, but okay. Right? So my thing I'm critical of is when Joe owns a property management company and isn't a broker themselves and doesn't have a broker on their team. So they find a different broker who's willing to essentially white label. Now, some of these brokers are active, involved, reviewing things, doing the duties. But I got to tell you, not really. I think that's more an intellectual thing that's sold. I know because I am a broker and I have an associate broker. I have 5 licensees under us and our hands are full. If we're properly supervising, we are doing a lot. So if you're a lay person, I want you to ask these people, these property management companies, who's the broker and where do they sit every day?
Yeah.
Listen, you'd be the only client to ask. Now, the other ring dinger of a question, this is the one that they have to tell you. Where do you keep the money and who's counting it? So I go, okay, what money, right? What money? Why do I care? Well, property managers manage your property, but they also manage the dollars in the bank account. But literally, the rent comes to us first. We pay expenses and then we distribute to the clients. We're also accountable for holding the security deposit, so the tenant liabilities.
Yeah.
So listen,
separate accounts.
They're trust accounts. So are they trust accounts? Does the investor know what a trust account is? A trust account is, while I sign and I'm the holder of that account, the bank knows it's not my money. Usually I have to do like an annual submission of whose money is this, right? I mean, a client list and whatnot. But if I do the big, bad, terrible thing and they seize all my accounts, they're going to seize all my accounts, but they're going to protect me from that, but get that money back to where it belongs.
Yeah.
The tenants and the owners, right? What the client doesn't understand is, like, this morning when I did my daily financial things and I pulled up my bank accounts on my bank website, there's 2 enormous accounts that are the trust accounts. That's the client's money and the tenant's money, the deposits. And in my world, they're each running about $500,000 on any given day. And then you've got 4 of my accounts. My payroll account, my tax account, my operating account, and they're much smaller. And what you don't know as the consumer is I can move that money freely between. Nobody's seeing anything. Nobody's doing anything. And in Pennsylvania, do you know who's inspecting? The same guy who goes and sees if they're putting the comb in the blue barbicide stuff at the barber.
That's important. I don't want to get head lice, so that is important, but I see the difference.
So in Pennsylvania, the inspectors that are going around are going to cosmetology and barbershops, car dealerships, and there's 1 or 2 other things like that. And they go to property management companies and real estate companies. And the gentleman I talked to goes, I only do 2 property management companies a year. Well, first of all, that's BS. He doesn't realize he's inspecting management companies because they're brokerages plus property management.
Yeah.
So he's inspecting the easy to inspect brokerage escrow account, which is holding your earnest money deposits for your clients in the middle of deals.
Which is much more rare now. Brokerages, we don't hold money at all at my brokerage that goes to either the attorney or title company. So where the money's at is in the PM account.
Right. And so the reputation that property managers have for being thieves, I think, comes from a lack of regulation, a lack of enforcement, and a lack of education. And so what I want to hear when I ask the question of the property manager, where's the money and who's counting it? I want to hear that it is in an FDIC insured bank. that even though, like in my cases, I already told you, my accounts are in excess of 250 because of the way they're set up. My clients are protected up to 250 each.
Right.
And then it's a trust account. I want to know that. And I want to know that there's an external party to the property manager who triple tie audits those books every month. So it's not a matter of me, Jen, going, don't worry, Mr. Client. I'm the only one who touches the money at One Focus.
Yeah.
Alarm bells should be going off. Alarm bells should be
Good
going
timing.
off.
Do you hear that?
I do hear that. They
Look at
heard
us.
and they said,
Yep,
PM
we're just
Jen's
doing it.
right. Light them up. No, no, I get sick to my stomach when I hear people talking about that, because although I don't look and I'm old enough to have seen some thieves in my business, and I hate that. I hate when people claim that they're the only ones and things like that. So those two big questions: who's the broker and where do they sit? Where's the money and who's counting it? First of all, you ask those questions, you will distinguish yourself from every other client who's ever approached them. And I think it puts the property managers in a different level of, oh, this person seems to understand something.
I mean, it could serve to help some people who actually have it in place but don't know, and helps them be a little bit more professional about how they present. Just like I've always said, realtors have a bad reputation for a reason. Most of them suck. Same for property managers. It's just true.
Yes.
The good ones stand much and above, but the general public, for both realtors and property managers, thinks, hey, I'll just go with my cousin Sally. They're fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
They have a license, but you're making a really good point that these things, what I think is really interesting, if I go across the course, all the episodes, what a lot of people talk about is how you separate a job and a business. This is separating a job and a business. Are you a mom and pop that's just commingling, which is like the term that comes up on every real estate exam and things not to do, and in the legal field? Or are you really running a business where other people have their hands in it and you understand where it's going? I do think people will struggle answering that question, really, like 99%. But I don't think that means that none of them have it in place. I just think they've never been asked a real question. They're just like asked, the typical dummy questions. That's also not a question that will come up if you use ChatGPT, which I think this is why this is awesome.
Yeah, and listen, maybe you already have a property manager and you haven't done these things. It's not too late. Get on your state's licensing board. Hey, hot tip. So I don't know when this is coming out, but it'll probably come out in June, right?
It's coming out soon. May. Okay. It's going to hit May. Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be in May. Okay, So in Pennsylvania, every real estate license expires every 2 years on June 1st. So my office, we're all updated, we're renewed. But one of my competitors, nobody's renewed.
Oof.
None of it. So you know who has a calendar appointment on June 1st to hop into PALS and see?
Yeah, that's great.
I also have a calendar appointment every quarter to go in and look at the disciplinary reports that for the whole state that came out. Because it's not that many, but I'm looking for property managers. I'm looking for things going on because I want to elevate this industry. I need to know what crimes are being committed. And I see former friends in those files. Folks, there's real people doing real injustices against our citizens, and I'm against it. Hot take against fraud.
Yeah, I know. Let's just say we're both against fraud and just lay that out there.
Yeah.
It's not good. Stealing, bad. Commingling, bad. But I really think, though, that your mom and pop investor, though, who's listening to the show, they have one or two properties, they probably already think this is a lot. But I think that's good, because I think that you're training people to ask for more. I always say, like, real estate investments are like the biggest investments you've ever made. People treat them like it's like you're buying something at Toys R Us. It's not. You need to protect these assets, and part of your protection, if you're not managing yourself, is making sure that your property manager is licensed and bonded. It's honestly, even though I know to do that, I probably would just assume going on a website and seeing a license that they're licensed, but they could have been revoked or something. These are things that it takes 30 seconds to check if you know where to go.
Well, and Jonathan, I preach this because I'm reporting on average 2 unlicensed property managers a year that I find in my licensed work. So when I find them, I report them and they either get legal or get out. So I think it's important that you ask. Here's some other like hot insider tips. One would be shop them like a tenant. So one of the biggest things that they do, right, highest cost is leasing your property. And I don't think clients are looking at the listings that property manager is putting forward or shopping the process. And this is such an easy way. Say you got that list of 10 property managers down to 2 or 3, and you were like, gosh, I just really don't know how to decide. What's so great is if you were hiring somebody to run your pizza shop, you might go look at and have a meal at one of the other pizza shops that they were running. So hop online, find a property that you could potentially be interested, express interest,
Yeah, it's a great idea.
engage, right, with their systems and their team. Is it prompt? Is it friendly? Are they selling the property? Go, you're not going to apply for it. That's kind of crazy, but go see the property. What condition is it in? How does the team treat you? Do they follow up? Do you sense that there's a good leasing process there that you would be happy with if that was your property being marketed?
Yeah.
It's a real easy. It goes so far beyond the reviews, which is probably
I love
just,
it.
yeah. One other point on reviews. Everybody looks at reviews. Property management reviews are exciting, right? I'm always very suspicious of somebody with only 5-star reviews. I'm like,
Yeah,
I remember what it was like to be new in the business.
No
too.
property manager's getting all 5 stars. I just tell you that because people are petty. It doesn't matter if you're the best. They're just petty.
And one of the core things of my job, the thing I do and sell, is the ability to hold and have boundaries.
Yeah.
So I tell a lot of people, no, you may not rent this property. I know you just paid $65 for an application, or maybe there was 2 or 3 adults. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
You don't literally, you paid
Doesn't
money.
make the application better.
Right? So they've paid money. They didn't get what they wanted. And I told them they weren't good enough. I mean, that's like bad. That's a bad experience for them.
Yeah.
Same thing with like when they're living in the unit. I tell them, no, the parolee brother can't move in. No, Cujo can't move in. You're not keeping the place nice enough. You got to pay for the window you broke. And then sometimes we terminate leases. Sometimes we have to evict. And so we engage in those things. And I think the standard for property managers is, and look at One Focus's reviews. I'm rocking a 4.4 out there. I think the standard is the property manager needs to explain where they are, what's going on. And listen, when you read enough of these, you see the patterns and you can tell as the audience, oh, I have a sense of what story this is telling. So don't just look at the scores, the 4.1 versus 4.4 or whatever. We're going to dig in and look at them with the context of just because people are upset at this property manager does not mean they didn't do the great job for the client that they're serving an owe fiduciary duty to.
Yeah, I think that's a great point and something that people may overlook. I also like what you were saying about becoming the tenant. A lot of my self-storage friends do that themselves when they're looking at self-storage facilities. They want it to suck though, because then they can buy it, cheap. So they're going on, no website. They call, see what kind of service they get. Like, this is like a gold mine right here because they can just upgrade the operations. But I really think putting yourself, if you get a good experience, now like, wow, my property is getting that experience. So my tenants are going to be happier. They're going to caretake my property. And that's what I think people forget. There's really like this kind of slippery slope that can happen. It can start all the way at the beginning on how you lease. If the leasing is uncomfortable and they don't get kind of, oriented right to the property, it just doesn't start off on a good. They're getting a lot of calls. That means you're getting a lot of calls to okay a lot of stuff. And it just becomes an imbalance. So you really do have to do that due diligence yourself. And I love the idea of kind of placing yourself as a tenant. I don't find it disingenuous at all. You're just doing research on who you want to hire. And if they do a good job, they're going to get hired. So incentive base is there.
And do double duty. Go see properties that are comparable to yours so you can do a little price research. There you go. 2 birds, 1 stone.
Yeah, seems easy. I mean, are there any like things that people should look out for in terms of just the personality dynamic? Because you're very good. I remember from our first conversation, obviously we're friends, but you're good at having like tough conversations. Not everybody is, and not every tenant is. But you have to kind of know, like, not every landlord also. As a landlord, you want to have a good relationship with your PM. You don't want to be scared to talk to them. So that kind of back and forth plays a role just as much as what their reviews look like. Because if they're a 5.0 review, but you're too scared to even talk to them, you're going to lose money at some point.
Yeah, the insight I would bring to that is you mentioned like a personality mix and making sure you're on the same page.
Yeah.
I really go back to incentives because what gets incentivized gets done. What does Charlie Munger say? Like, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcomes.
Yeah.
And in my business, you have three main types of people. So you have real estate sales agents who do this as a part of their overall real estate business, often motivated by keeping their investor clients in-house and keeping them from befriending the property manager down the street who might also sell property. And so the thing to remember is real estate agents get heavily compensated for making transactions happen. They never make an enemy. Right? Because everybody's going to buy or sell or refer. And so I find realtors just generally not great at the conflict and operational parts of our business. It just isn't a great matchup for who they are as people. You're not going to hire the whiz bang salesperson to run your factory that has to run 3 shifts a day and be on top of it. I think property management's much more like a factory.
Yeah, and most realtors are high eyes, so they're people pleasers. So they I don't want to hear that I'm bad. They're more likely to ghost or to just kind of ignore it because it feels bad. And it is tough. Yeah. I mean, having those conversations, we definitely talked about it a lot on our first podcast episode. It's tough. It's tough to go in and tell someone you got to get out. We have to evict you or you're not paying for 6 months. I used to do it, as a 16-year-old, I was telling people. So I kind of got adjusted to it. But you'd be surprised that there's people out there, I'm sure you can confirm, that own 10, 15 properties, and they're just not managing them correctly. And they're not even managing the manager correctly, because to hire somebody like you to restrict you from being you would be the worst spend of money that you could do, right?
Right. Yeah, to try to control and say, no, I don't want your system. I want you to execute my system.
Right. Or act like me, don't act like you, but you get the job done,
Generally, I'm not a big fan of realtors who are also property managers unless, and I've met several who the bulk of the business is property management. Right. Real estate sales is really the sideline. If it's the other way around, and by the way, you'll tell this from their social media, their website. I know real estate sales / property managers, and there's not one thing about property management on anything. They don't care about it. They're not getting better. They're not investing. They're doing it as a strategy to keep people. So I would be critical of that it doesn't seem like the best thing for the buy and hold investor. Successful personal investors often start property management companies. So maybe I build up to 150 doors, 150. I have a handyman. I got a leasing agent, a bookkeeper. And now my buddies, Jonathan goes, hey, Jen, you really figured this out. Will you manage my 10 doors? And I go, oh God, the fees on that would half pay for Brenda. Great. And I start taking them on. And the issue there is I have a positivity bias that I have been successful for myself.
Yeah.
Nobody who gives me that measure, that praise, has seen one book, one sale, one nothing. They've just seen me drive around in my big fancy car and talk about things, and they see all this. I think that successful personal investor turned property manager, there's good ones out there, but you got to know what the mix of their business is and what you're competing with. Because if they're managing 400 doors and 200 of them are theirs,
right? Yeah.
Who's working for who where?
It's confusing, but your fiduciary duty gets mixed up because your fiduciary duty to yourself is almost non-existent. So you can let a lot more slide than what you can for a client. This is all part of the very weak rules to get a real estate license, but it's in there if you remember it. And a lot of people don't. Hey, it's Jonathan. I hope you're enjoying this episode with Hold It with PM Jen, aka Jennifer Ruelens. If you want to get more information about her, it's not hard. She's been crushing the content. Go to holditwithpmjen.com. Through there, you can follow her on all social media platforms, but that's also where you can get your no bullshit playbook, how she helps real estate investors grow real wealth with real estate. She's a property manager, and this show is all about it. Let's get back to it. One question I wanted to ask you from before that just goes to what you just said. Personally, I think when I'm looking at property management companies, I want the brokerage to only do property management. When I say, if they're doing the leasing, that's fine. But I rent all of my landlords' places, but I don't property manage. I teach them how to manage themselves. And then we have a New Jersey management company, not me, that I don't own it, that someone else manages if they want to go that way. But I like seeing those ones that I know, like you were saying, all they do is property management, because they're just much different businesses. They do have an area where they get together, but they're very different types of businesses just in the way that you handle money, like we were saying at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think they're entirely different. As I always say, like there's the realtor out there who, by the way, is usually independent contractor,
Right.
right? They're
Yeah.
paying all their own
Almost always.
expenses.
Yeah.
And they're moving from one large commission to the next. They're constantly assessing like the contingency of that deal. Do I keep investing in this for the
Right.
potential
Right.
payout or
Yeah.
not? It's a whole different skill set from the property manager who I say needs to wake up at 5 a.m., check the insurance policies, reconcile the accounts, check for dog poops in the yard. Like
Yeah.
it is chop wood, carry water all day long in property management. And that work, that tasking, in my opinion, is best accomplished by true employees,
Yeah.
which is what we're doing. When you try to do this with 1099 subs who are being compensated, like they kind of eat a piece of what they kill, is how a lot of these are set up, commission based. I don't love it. I don't think it
I
gives
don't either.
you the best, most, because here's the thing. I need the service to be as good on January 2026 as I do in August, as I do next year, whether it's raining, snowing, sleeting, whether the market's picked up and all of a sudden Amy has 10 listings where she was the least productive office or agent last year and she was the shoo-in. And when you go to these real estate offices, it is admin assistants and rookie agents doing the property management because
Oh, yeah.
those
Yeah.
people are not out killing
There's
big
nothing else to
commissions.
do. Yeah. It's a
And I'm
great
sorry.
point. Yeah. Go ahead.
And everybody in the situation thinks it's fine because you're just collecting the rent and calling a plumber. And that's such BS. It's not even funny. If you say that, you ain't seen it. That tells me you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, and I always say about part-time realtors, why would you want to hire a part-time realtor with buying something for $500,000 or selling something for $1 million? That's ludicrous. Take it to another level. You want to do property management, which is literally a 24/7 business, and you want your point of contact to be a part-timer who's also, selling insurance on the side and has like a side hustle, with Avon. That's just not good business. It's not who I personally want to sign up for to represent my property and to protect my investment. These are great points. And I mean, I just don't think people think about these things enough because they think, let me get your take on this. I think when people decide they want a property manager, when they've been doing it themselves, they're so overwhelmed with it. They're literally like that person who just can't handle the rental on themselves. So they just take the first person, they look nice. Okay, great. They stop paying after 1 month, professional tenant. But same thing, you're so frustrated with, going out on Thanksgiving that on November 27th, you're calling like whoever the first property manager answers like, hey, you want to take this property? Don't look at anything. I get it. You're over the barrel, but like, hey, that's why this guide is out there to help people kind of focus a little more and set a better framework for your properties for the future.
Right. And, kind of transitioning to when you maybe on board with a property manager, just from what we were just talking about, like different ways people are set up. Understand if you think that working with your property manager is going to be like working with a realtor, I think a lot of times you're going to be disappointed because a realtor is really concierge. They're only working with a handful of clients at a time. They are taking that call during dinner and movies because it's very important that things keep moving. But a property management company should be run much more like a business. And most of us who are running efficient businesses that manage your property well, we're going to work a lot more during business hours. You're not going to have our cell phones. You're not going to be
that's a
calling
good point.
me up at 8 p.m. on Saturday night to just jaw about something. And that's a bit of a different expectation. Now, there are property managers who work more that concierge level. What I'm going to say about that is going to be because they're working you around a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
And truly, they're solving every problem for the first time anyway. So what does it matter if I pick up the phone and start solving that problem at 8 p.m. tonight or 7 a.m. tomorrow? Where in my business, very rarely is there a problem that gets my attention at 8 o'clock at night. It has to be pretty novel, pretty risky, pretty, has some consequences. And so, as I say, we're not solving problems for the first time here. So we're anticipating, we're predicting, and we're going to be 9 to 5. And hey, it's a difference between like the concierge and the machine. And what do you like? And I just think when people have machines, it indicates a level of expertise and solidity or like solidness that I can count on as a client.
Yeah.
But that's your choice as the client.
Yeah, I think that people think in their mind, I want someone who's always available. But if they're always available, like you said, they're always available to everyone. I prefer someone who has strong boundaries so I don't have to wonder I know what to do between 5 and 9 the next day. I call the line. I'm going to get whoever I get, leave a message. And if it's important, someone will call me back because they're monitoring it. You have good boundaries. I have like the most insane boundaries. I don't even talk on the phone. My phone says, don't even try. Don't leave a message. Don't send me a voicemail. Just send me a text, because I'm always scheduled. My day is scheduled with all the stuff that I do every day. So I don't have time to just like pick up the phone. It's insane to me. But if I was running a type of business that was like if my brokerage phone call, I answer it because that's my brokerage phone. I just don't answer my cell phone because who am I talking to on my cell phone? No one, because I don't like talking on the phone. But I think people make that kind of misjudgment that if someone's available, they're better, when I don't think so. I want someone who has a good time with their family at night and then comes back to work ready to go.
Yeah, I want somebody who can offer me more than just, I'll pick up your call anytime, day or night.
Right. Not gonna do what you ask. I'll just answer the call.
I've never met really like smart people who are good at their job who are like, you know what? I'm going to lead with 100% availability. Like, and John, I mean, that you and I have restricted contact to us in order to keep up the level of work we do. Yeah. But every call and inquiry to our business is answered, is handled.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes we just forget that other part when we talk about like, you can't call me or I don't talk on the phone. I personally don't. Your company helps people through all modes of transportation.
Yeah. Oh, and I do text everybody back. It's just, I will text you back. Like, you just have to communicate on my level. These are really good points, because I think, again, it goes back to what people's expectations are. But I think part of what we want to do with this is to kind of rewire how people think about it, to have them set up. And by giving them a guide, you give them something easier to look through and hold people accountable. If, like we were saying in the beginning, if they can't answer the questions or they're umming, what the fees are, it's not the right fit for you. It's just, it's not going to be a good experience. It's not going to be a good experience for the tenant. If the tenant's unhappy, your property's unhappy, and then you're going to be unhappy with the repairs, and you're going to double up on those repairs because they didn't need to happen. Because as you said, and I know from our first episode, for people to go back and listen, you forecast things that are going to happen based on your knowledge over other properties. So you're ahead of the game on the repairs, knowing like, oh, that's going to come due. But your regular just company, they're just waiting till something breaks. But that's the worst case scenario, because then everything's an emergency.
Yeah. A lot of companies think if every call's answered and every email's answered, which is a very reactionary stance, they're doing fine. And I think we've just... And successful companies graduate past that to anticipatory preparation and showing leadership. And that's kind of where we're at. Speaking to that, though, so once you've hired that property manager, it's easy to think like, how do I know? Like, I think most clients just shut it off. Just go, I've handed it off. It's theirs to deal with now.
Yeah.
You need to inspect what you expect. And listener, if you get one thing from this, it's that phrase, inspect what you expect. I have no sympathy for you if a year later you come to me and say, well, my property manager's never sent me a draw and never sent me a report. And I've heard that. I've heard that from people, and I go, holy cowabunga. So what I want you to do to be ready is like, look at the year. You get a calendar out, right? When did you get your lease? When are you expecting to hear from the property manager about renewal? When will the inspection happen? Hey, is there like a steam boiler inspection that has to happen every spring, right? Calendar, when are you getting your draws? Is it the 21st of the month? Yeah. Now that's calendared. Now you are pretty easily, if you use a calendar, going in and going, oh, today's draw day. Now when tomorrow comes and you don't have it, you can react quickly. You're not going, hey, how many months has it been since I received a draw? Or, oh, wait, that lease did come up for renewal 2 months ago and I didn't hear from the property manager, right? And it can be innocent things like the email didn't make it, it got returned, or it's in your junk. But you need to be participatory. And I would argue you never let go of that calendar. You have to have at least a monthly touch point on, what is the manager doing? Is there anything I need to pay attention to here? And is there anything behind? That's probably the biggest thing I would tell somebody who's never worked with a manager before, to help them get comfortable with that rhythm.
Yeah. And how do you go through the authority part? Things that I'm sure it's in the agreement, but I think it's really important to know things that a property manager can just handle themselves. Like a lot of big businesses, a lot of these businesses that have scaled always say, like, if it's under X amount, just handle it. if you can verify it. Is that something that's important? So as someone who's trying to make this more passive by hiring property management, you don't always have to manage. You should be doing a kind of overview management of the manager, but you don't want to. What's the point of having them if they call you for every, we need a PEX, a little PEX pipe. Okay, I'm good. Like, I'm out. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. So yes, most agreements are actually going to be pretty vague because the circumstances that occur on these properties are so wide ranging.
Yeah.
So you'll find authority given, and you need to double check on leasing and renewing tenants. Who decides under what parameters?
Yeah, that's
is
huge.
The owner ever included in that decision? That's something to just go through, hey, all the leasing and the renewal decisions. And then how about lease compliance decisions? Who decides if a lease gets renewed or not? Who, meaning for non-renewal for we're going to terminate you? Who decides if we're going to do a landlord tenant complaint or a notice to quit? And listen, all the good property managers, if you ask that, I need to know who's going to decide what, they're either going to have something that shows you exactly who does what, or they'll be able to walk you through it.
Yeah.
And then the big one, the one that I think most clients are thinking about is maintenance spend. They can just imagine, look at me, a fancy lady with my gold earrings. What kind of bathtub would I buy for your rental, right? Does that give maybe an investor concern? That girl is wearing a Talbot's jacket.
Yeah.
She doesn't
going
value
for the Kohler
$1
tub with the fountain, here we go.
Yeah, right? And I get that question a lot. Hey, what are you going to spend? How are you going to decide repair versus replace? And I think for that, what I would say is you're going to ask about how are authorizations for maintenance done, but how are authorizations for maintenance done under different circumstances? Because there's emergency. It's Sunday morning, no heat, and it's winter, right? How far am I going to go to involve you, Mr. Mrs. Owner, in that? There's work order work where maybe it's not an emergency, but it is a tenant satisfaction issue, a customer service issue, how quickly we fix something. And then there's turnover. So, the unit's over, who's going to do the work, all that. And then there's capital improvements. Hey, it needs a roof this year. Oh, we got to put in a new French drain, whatever. All those things, you want to talk through all those different types of work and understand. And so a lot of how do you figure it out? A lot of what if questions. And a good property manager is going to be able to sit down, explain how it works, explain if there's any options, and then even give you stories and examples to kind of grip onto.
Yeah.
And I'd work that into my sales presentation. Hey, pretend at 8 a.m. the hot water didn't work and the tenant called me and then this. And I walk through a typical scenario of how it works.
Yeah, one thing you said was really interesting to me because I hadn't thought of capital improvements, but I think your best property managers, this goes to kind of getting ahead of everything, are going to give you advice on, hey, when they come over for a site visit, they say, well, here are your big CapEx things coming. But I think probably, 50 to 75% of property managers don't do that. They're just managing the day-to-day, things like we're saying. And that's where you're separating business and job, because what's going to protect your investment? Someone just collecting the rent or someone looking at your roof and that's going to leak soon. So we need to be proactive about this so we don't get a tenant complaint when something's pouring into their, kitchen.
I cannot agree more. And it's indicative of expertise when your property manager is asking you more questions and not just glossing over things.
I agree. Yeah.
Especially if they gloss over deferred maintenance, if they gloss over tenant compliance. Okay, here's a great story. Somebody called me 2 years ago for a 3-unit building here in town. They were going through a divorce and they were contemplating hiring a manager to manage it or selling it. And what happened was they hired another manager who didn't make them put on keyless locks and various other things they were irritated with. And they're not a very good property manager. And then it got sold to this other buyer, and this person kept using this bad property manager. Now, this guy wants to sell the building, and he knows I buy buildings. So he calls me up, and I don't really want the building, I guess. I mean, I always kind of do, but I didn't have anything to do
That's
that
how
after.
I feel.
I know, right?
I mean, I want almost every building for a second.
I know. I want them all. But I said, you know what? I was there 2 years ago. I have the stabilization plan I wrote from that time. Let's go see. This place has gone to hell, Jonathan. I mean,
that's two parts of the spectrum, though, because if they went with your stabilization plan, it would have been fully functioning. And now it's literally on the bottom of the rung.
Oh, yeah. The tenants that are there are entirely non-compliant. we're mostly empty. We have a garage that's falling down, a pile of rubber tires. I mean, it just, all of the things. And I look at that and I go, that's awful. That's awful that building has depreciated in my estimation. And it's because of this manager. And the manager walked me through somewhat proudly. She's done this several times. She's always very proud of the work that's going on there. And I'll ask questions. And I'm just always incredibly surprised at how she's like, oh, yeah. Or they pay by the end of the month. And I'm standing in a unit ankle deep in one case, it was yarn. The man did yarn art. But
at least that's comfortable. It's better than feces. I mean,
it's not comfortable. All the yarn fibers up your nose, Jonathan. You're not
I can
picturing.
see if with that much. I mean, there's probably like a Strange Obsessions episode about that.
Yeah,
but.
None of this looked in the condition to sell, but he claimed it was profit making. But the unit was covered in yarn. And I'm sitting here going like, this isn't okay. Like this isn't anything I would ever permit. And this is a lot of problem. But yeah, I think when your property manager lets those things go or doesn't address them as urgent and needing to be dealt with, that's a warning sign.
Yeah. Well, warning signs lead to eventual firing. So let's get to the part that I like the most.
Fire. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember I had a friend from law school was dismissed from The Apprentice in a very questionable thing. He fell on the sword. He's pretty big on social media now with his law practice, but he fell on the sword for someone else, and then Donald fired him.
He got fired.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, look, it comes down to it, and I think we have to look at firing as not like doing something where you're aggrieving someone else, because of course, when you do fire someone, they're all of a sudden, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's like a breakup. Now all of a sudden, you're going to do all the best things that you've never done. You not only pay attention to me, but now you're going to. Sure, this is going to work out. But I think you have to come to the table, and if you're managing the manager correctly, you should know when the time is. But people are babies, so it's hard to do. How do you fire your property manager? When and why?
Yeah. Well, you're going to fire it when you can't fix it. And I won't spend a lot of time on fixing it. But the hint is if something's going awry, whatever it is, I want you to not spend too much time in the lower levels of people. Because remember who's working for you and who owes you all this.
Yeah.
It's the broker. So if you're having a problem with the leasing agent, the maintenance coordinator, the property manager, whatever, I want you to pretty quickly take that complaint in writing to the broker.
Yeah.
You will see a very different level of response when you get that person's attention on what's going on. And what I'm looking for out of that conversation, no matter what the problem is, I want a plan that I can believe in, and I am looking for them to execute on it. So I present problem, we do whatever research we have to, property manager commits to a course of action that hopefully I look at and go, yes, I believe in that. I believe that will rectify this and I will be comfortable. If they can't come up with that, I don't have to go up with whatever they put up in front of me.
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah.
It's very important you as the investor know that you should understand and believe in the plan. And then you've got to hold them to it. And I mean, now you're really inspecting what you're expecting. You're asking, when is this going to be delivered? When things are late, you're right on it. Okay, so you did all that. You went to the broker. You did it in writing, and it's over. So first step, we're going to check the contract. How do I get out of this, right? And sometimes you can get out at any time, or you can get out for a fee or for a reason. And other times it's a long time. I'm not your lawyer, so you're going to look at your contract and explore all that.
This is not legal advice, even though I'm an attorney.
Right. What I'll tell you is, from the property manager's point of view, we're not interested in working for you if you're not happy. It's a very uncomfortable situation to owe you all that fiduciary duty when you don't trust me. You're making my life a living hell. That is uncomfortable. And so you can just ask. You can so say it's May, we're recording this, and my contract goes through the end of this year. I can go to that property manager and go, listen, I am not satisfied. Yeah. I believe these things, and I don't believe we can work together, and I'm seeking to be released. You might have to get your lawyer involved. You might decide, if it violates the state's rules and regs or whatever, to make a complaint to the commission, to make a complaint to associations they belong in. But all of this is to say, I think you can usually negotiate your way out.
Yeah.
But that's one part of things, and your lawyer will help you with that and all of that. What I want the investor to think about is what happens next, because you're making a change. You're either going to manage it yourself forever or for a
Yeah.
time being, or you're going to take it to another manager. So you're taking back a job or you're moving a job. And if you've ever had people work for you, this is not low effort. This is not, you're not involved. You're very involved. And so I want to see the investor getting together with that property manager and understanding, when are services stopping? When's the last time
What's
you're
the
going to mow?
transition? Yeah.
Collect rent, check the air filter, communicate with the tenant. What are you going to tell the tenant, right? And then as the investor, you set up the new management, whether that's you or a new manager, to succeed. I want to make sure that I know when I'm getting the security deposit, the leases, the contact information, the keys. I want notes. I want tenant ledgers. I want applications. I want move-in inspections. There's a lot of things. You want to see my article on LinkedIn? I really list them all out. People think, oh, I need the leases. Try to run something off of a lease and a security deposit check. It's harder than you think. Even just not having phone numbers and emails is a real hindrance. And I find some property managers are lazy about giving that up. So I want to see the investors advocating, asking for, and those are your assets to the property. You are due them.
But if you go through all this stuff and saying, like, I think that people looking at like that, this is why people stay with bad property managers, because like it's a lot of work to change. If you're somebody like me, like I used to, I'd do a flip and then contractor would be late the first day. I'm like, oh, go fuck yourself. You're fired. And then I'd realize the next day, well, Nate, now I have to hire someone and start all over. And then I hire the same, a person who acts exactly the same. I'm like, I finally learned my lesson. Like, one, don't be involved, have a project manager, but also, you have to have a plan, a transition plan. And if you burn a bridge with that property management company, they're not going to be as professional to help you if you haven't been professional in the way that you've handled it.
Hopefully that's not the case, but I do think that is true, what you're saying. And what I'll share, if there's a property manager listening, one of the best things you can do for your reputation management is do the transitions well. Do the onboarding and offboarding of clients and tenants really, really well. Here's the thing. If you, Jonathan, fire my company and you're going to hire another company and I make it difficult for you, I don't give you move-in inspections, I delay things or it's in bad shape. Do you know who suffers? The tenant. The tenant wants to know things. The tenant needs service and you or the manager isn't going to be able to help them, isn't going to be able to understand what's going on. And so I make a big deal about that. We talk to all the clients, the tenants involved about what's changing hands and what that does for them. Hey, Mr. Tenant, you moved in 3 years ago and we took a 20-minute video of your property to hold you to. Guess what? That video is going with them. You don't have to worry about justifying anything. We gave them the proof. That's the right thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is why we're all looking for businesses instead of people working jobs. Where is this guide available? Because I think we've really got through the whole thing, but sometimes people like to just see it, follow the steps, and you have all the steps laid out there, and you have a 3-part video series, I know, on that as well.
I've got a lot. You go to Hold It with PM Jen YouTube.
That's your real name, by the way. Let's just keep it that way.
That's how I file my taxes. So you go to YouTube. There's a 3-part video series where I break this down in some more detail. I did a podcast. So I did 2 episodes of the podcast, also called Hold It with PM Jen. And I did a written article, which is on my LinkedIn under Jennifer Ruelens. Listen, just know it's there because you're not hiring and firing property managers every day.
Let's hope not.
Right. And so if this is what's going on for you right now, this is so timely. But if you're like, hey, that's interesting, following me, being in touch with me, this is the kind of content I'm putting out. If you're considering working with them or want to get good at the hold, come to the voice of the hold, PM Jen.
Yeah. And even if you have a good property manager, this isn't going to hurt you. You may be able to build that relationship with good advice if you're in Iowa or somewhere, outside of central Pennsylvania where you can get the help. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm glad we did this second episode. This was a great one. So the best places to find you are holditwithpmjen.com, which is your real name, and onefocuspm.com, which is your company servicing central Pennsylvania and the other areas around there, right?
Thanks for having me on again, Jonathan. What a treat. I love your audience. They're really cool.
Well, I love talking to you. It's always a blast, and I appreciate you coming back. Thanks so much. All right. That was Jennifer Ruelens. Now, today, she's going to the courthouse to change it to Hold It with PM Jen, I'm sure. But I'm Jonathan Greene. I'll see you next episode.
Thanks for sticking around to the end so you can get a preview on what is coming up on episode 350 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. So this has always been the mindful approach to real estate investing, and based on my experience as well as all of the landlord shows we've done, episode 350 is the mindful approach to landlording. We'll see you next episode.